Okay, hi. Welcome to the Sanitation and Food Production, What You Need to Know. Today, we are going to talk about sanitation procedures, training, and support. It's a relation to food safety and production. A well-designed supported sanitation program is critical to the production of a safe food product. The right tools for the job, a critical component. Having the correct tools for the job supports a safe, efficient, and repeatable sanitation result. Validation of cleaning and verification of chemical concentrations. Availability of labor, the tormentor of the food processing industry. How to look at this issue and how is industry adapting. Biofilms, the enemy within. Knowing how this issue has been affecting your production for years, how to identify it, and how to deal with it. Today's speaker is Lauren Piercy, Account Manager for Sanimark Food and Beverage. So thank you all for joining us today for the sanitation webinar. The webinar is brought to you by the Food and Beverage Business Accelerator Program. My name is Pam Lathan. I am a food safety specialist with Perennia Food and Agriculture. We are Nova Scotia's only development agency with a focus on agriculture and seafood. We offer consulting services in food safety to assist with program development, implementation, and training. We also offer services in agriculture extension, mobile wine bottling, and analytical testing of cannabis, foods, and beverages. Our innovation team works with clients on product development, process improvement, nutritional labeling, and shelf life determination. Today's guest speaker is Lauren Piercy. Lauren has been servicing the industrial food sector in Nova Scotia for 30 plus years and has occupied the position of account manager for Sanimark Food and Beverage for the past 11 years. Lauren has held various roles in his career: account manager, regional sales manager, and director of training development. His experience and expertise cover sanitation, chemistry, training, and training development, site auditing, and contamination investigations. Lauren is currently sitting on a national advisory board with Food Processing Skills Canada. Lauren holds a certificate in adult education development from Dalhousie University and is currently working on an advanced certificate in adult learning and teaching, as well as a certification in equity, diversity, and inclusion. So after the webinar, we will have time for questions. So if you can type your questions in the Q&A, you will find the button below. And that is all for me. And I will now hand it over to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Pam, for that introduction. And thank you to everyone who has made the time to make this webinar today. We will, I've just got to get my screen up and running here. Here we go. How's that? Okay. So yeah, so thank you for that introduction, Pam, and thank you again for everyone for participating today in this webinar. My name is Lauren Piercy, and I'm the account manager for Sanimark Food and Beverage in Nova Scotia. And I'm going to cover a number of topics that seem to be the 5 topics that generally have a little bit of misunderstanding in the industry. I'm going to bring some understanding as best I can to you. And again, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A form and we can get to them at the end of the presentation. So on the outline, we're going to talk about sanitation procedures and costs. We'll also have a review of labor training and availability. The right tools for the job, always important. We'll also have a review, more of an in-depth review on the validation of the processes involved in food production. And we'll end off with a brief outline of biofilms, what they are and why you should be aware of them. So on the sanitation procedures and costs, any cleaning sanitation program has to meet the following criteria. It has to be effective. It has to have a repeatable result every night. It's process dependent, so it's dependent on process and the training that accompanies that, and it's employee dependent. It's dependent on the skill set of your employees. We teach a 6-step sanitation program at Sanimark Food and Beverage. Other providers have a 5-step or a 7-step. We work a 6-step program. So step 1 would be a site prep in the production area. Step 2 would be a pre-rinse. Step 3 and 4 are chemical application and final rinsing. Step 5 is the visual inspection, and then followed by the last step, step 6, which is the application of the sanitizer. Now, each one of these steps would have various procedures involved, and we would go into much more detail in a structured training program, on a sanitation training program. But this is basically a 6-step process that outlines the repeatable result of a good sanitation program. It's like building a house. Steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are the foundation, the walls, the structure of the house. Step 6 is the sanitizer. That's the roof. That has to stay up. If you don't build a house correctly, the roof's going to fall down. So it's really important that this process be followed correctly every night so that the sanitation step will work for you. But there's one thing about sanitizing that people don't get. And there's a #1 rule about cleaning and sanitation. That is, the #1 rule is you cannot sanitize dirt. Applying a sanitizer solution of any kind to a dirty surface or a surface that hasn't been cleaned properly does absolutely nothing. So again, your sanitation program is it's a program that has to be repeatable every night, so the sanitation step works for you in your production of a safe product. Excuse me. In days gone by, when I started this job many years ago, sanitation was considered by the processors as kind of a necessary evil from an expense point of view. And really the sanitation program followed a guideline of as simple as long as your food plant didn't smell too bad, your sanitation program was working okay. That was the sanitation program many years ago. That's gone. That no longer exists. Now, cleaning and sanitation is considered part of the production process. It is no different than taking a piece of protein or a food product and processing it to a level where you put it into a package, and that's a ready-to-eat product. Someone can safely buy that down the road, open it, and eat it. Cleaning and sanitation is part of that process now. And third-party auditors, those are the people who, not the auditors that represent a government agency, but your third-party auditors, the people who represent your customers, who are auditing your facility for your customer. They will do an audit of your program, and they will spend upwards to 40% of their time just auditing the sanitation program because of the importance the market views that process with regards to food safety. Sanitation is the first step to avoiding the dreaded recall. And we all are probably aware of many years ago where there was a recall at Maple Leaf with Listeria, and the results from that. That was all linked back to primarily a sanitation program that wasn't doing the job for that particular producer rather. So sanitation is the first, if there's a recall, the first place most auditors look is the sanitation program. All sanitation training is developed and conducted from the standpoint of food safety and production. Sanitation is considered part of the production process. There is no separation. So let's look at the cost breakdowns on a cleaning and sanitation program. There may be some surprises here, but we'll break it down into 5 or 6 steps here. So the first, number one cost of the first cost is labor. Your labor costs on your sanitation program make up approximately 19% of your overall cost. The next one would be energy. Energy is usually around 8%. People think that should be a little higher, but actually it's around 8% on average of the cost of your sanitation program. The biggest cost on your sanitation program is water and sewage. Even if you provide your own water through drilled wells or what have you, or you purchase your water from a municipality, it's quite high. It's above 45% as a cost for your sanitation program. And sanitation programs use a lot of water from the nature of what we do. The next is chemicals. Chemicals are actually the lowest cost factor in a sanitation program. They usually should be around 6%. People have a tendency to overly focus on the cost of chemicals because you get a statement, it's there every month, but it's usually around 6% of your overall costs. And then there's other related costs that make up the remaining 20+% of a sanitation program. But just to give you an example of what these other related costs could be, one of the most expensive utilities that you have to provide to run equipment and tools for sanitation and for production is compressed air. And we tend to think of compressed air as this thing that's just always available, it's there. But compressed air is actually very expensive to produce because 81% of the energy that's used to produce compressed air is lost through heat. And to put that into perspective, if you have a large facility that would be using compressed air to run, equipment and tools and processing, and you walk through that facility and you hear that hiss of leaking air, that's money going down the drain. A series of leaks on your compressed air system that would accumulate to the size of a 1/4-inch hole has a cost of approximately $8,000 a year of wasted energy and wasted costs. So if you're walking through your facility and you hear that hissing noise, that's money going down the drain. So little things like that can make a big difference. Your biggest source of dollar loss, however, is on your labor. Lack of knowledge and training. Training is absolutely key to the effectiveness and efficiency of a sanitation program. The next thing is your supervision on the floor. Having good supervision on the floor to supervise your sanitation workers makes it all work together. It's absolutely important to have someone who's good at the job of supervising your people, holding them accountable, and empowering the people. Easier said than done, but when you find someone who's really good at the job of supervising your sanitation staff, a lot of magic happens. Lack of proper tools is a big source of loss, of dollar loss. The old adage, the right tools for the job really comes into play here. Having the right tools for the job is the difference between, having a task take 30 minutes, whereas it should take 10. And that's a huge labor savings and cost when you have the right tools for the job. And another thing that's becoming quite popular is the development and implementation of the 5S management program. A 5S management program is a management program that was developed many years ago by the Japanese auto industry. And what it is basically is a management program that delegates certain management responsibilities to the people on the floor. It can be quite complex or it can be quite simple. But what it does, it brings your employees who are on the floor, brings them in as part of the solution and as part of that ongoing process of improvement. And I've seen some pretty amazing things happen from a well-run 5S management program. It's an employee-driven program that it has a lot of positivity to it. So let's talk a little bit about labor training and availability. We could have a whole day-long webinar about this alone. But labor, training, and availability of labor is the #1 issue for food production industry in Canada and in North America. We all hear about the Great Resign over, over these past 2 years during COVID-19. The Great Resign is just part of the problem. The problem of labor availability has been around before COVID, and it still exists today. There's a high turnover in labor. We have probably experienced a situation where we've hired or you have hired an employee, and they show up on a Monday morning for work and orientation, and at noon, at lunchtime, they decide they don't want to do it anymore, and they just leave and don't tell anybody. That is a common occurrence, unfortunately, but it does happen. High turnover is a factor. The availability of labor is another factor. Just as one stat to emphasize that, in Guelph, Ontario, Guelph has a large food processing sector in the Guelph, Ontario region. At any given time, and this has been happening now for quite a number of years, at any given time in Guelph, Ontario, they have between 800 and 1,100 permanent full-time jobs in the food sector that they can't fill, which is disconcerting and very frustrating. But it is a reflection of the challenges that the labor and the availability of labor has been presenting to the employers in the food sector in Canada. The quality of labor is a factor as well. Not all labor is very good quality, but some of it can be developed into good quality labor through proper training, but the quality of the labor is an issue. And foreign workers. Now, the foreign worker is really part of the solution to the labor concerns that we have, but it does bring some challenges of language and can be temporary as well. But foreign workers, for the most part, has been part of the solution of a labor shortage in North America. And automation is part of the solution as well. Automation is part of the solution. I've seen more and more capital being spent on automation with regards to food processing. It does bring some challenges of cleaning and sanitation when you over automate a facility. And you also get a loss of yield. Depending on what you're processing, you can get a loss of yield through automation, which reflects itself in higher prices in the store for the consumer. But again, we come to training. Training is key to maximizing labor results. It results in empowerment. Knowledge is power for your staff. So empowering your staff with knowledge has many positive results. It also is responsibility. Delegation and follow-up, having a structured way of delegating and following up your staff. People overall want to be responsible. They want to have a responsibility and be followed up accordingly. People become dissatisfied and disenfranchised with their positions when they don't know what they're doing or they don't have any feedback. So responsibility, delegation, and follow-up is key. Labor as an active part of the solution. Look at your employees as part of the solution. Active listening to the staff concerns with regards to what they're bringing back from the floor, their observations, like a sanitation related observation. They are on the floor all the time. If they bring something back and say, we should maybe do it this way, or maybe there's a more efficient way of doing it that way, that's very valuable information that can have a positive result for you. And it also, in turn, will make your employees feel more valued. Your staffs are the eyes and ears on the floor. Find a way to try and tap into that. It can only have positive results in regards to your labor and could result in a retention of your staff as well. Supervision, I come back to the point of supervision. You need leadership on the floor. Easier said than done. Usually people who want to be a supervisor are motivated by maybe a higher pay. That's the wrong motivation. Supervising people is a dark art, but when you find someone who can do it, the magic will happen. But it's key to having a good, efficient process. And of course, the 5S management program as well. Now, your sanitation supplier, whoever it may be, whether it's Sanimark or someone else, should be able to provide you some of the training you need to help you develop your sanitation program. We, 30 years ago plus, when I started this job, my job was selling chemicals. That's what I did. Today, 85% plus of my time is education. We are a company that develops and makes chemicals that we happen to sell, but we're really educators. And that's key to any supplier that you have right now with regards to your cleaning and sanitation. They have to be a source of education for you. To further expand on this, there's a webinar next week by Britta Ball through the Perennia group here on the 29th of March, and 3 areas of focus to improve food safety, training, and compliance. I would encourage you to enroll in that webinar and take that in. I know I will be. It should be some interesting information there to take part that you could that could help you on your sanitation and on your production processes. Let's talk about tools, the right tools for the job. I would strongly recommend that if you haven't done so, that you implement a color-coded cleaning tool system. Now, this could be any particular color coding that you want it to be. Traditionally, or in the industry, black tools, the color tool for a black colored tool will be used on floors and drains, because the floor, of course, is a very contaminated area, and a black designation color for those tools for floors would be a visual quick reference for that's the only place that they would be used for. You can use red for food contact, you can use blue for walls and ceilings, and white and yellow. There's all kinds of colors available that you can develop your own color coding on your tools. Remco Viken is a great source for this information, and that's their website there. I would encourage you to log on there. They make a great product, and they really support their product through education as well with regards to developing a system that would work for you. So strongly recommend that. Auditors want to see this. It really distinguishes you from your competitors with regards to being proactive on your sanitation program. Chemical application equipment is also important. It should be kept in good working order. Your chemical supplier company should be able to provide a PM program to help maintain your equipment. I know our service technician is a gentleman in Nova Scotia who works for us, and he doesn't stop. So we make the effort to make sure that the equipment is working and all the time. And then when it doesn't, you make a call and we get right out there and get it done. So your supplier your present supplier should be able to provide you with that service. If possible, the chemical application systems should be foolproof. And what I mean by that, they should not be able to be tampered with by your staff. What you should have a system that is going to enhance and optimize your consumption of product. So basically making sure you're consuming the least amount of product possible. Everybody thinks that more is better when it comes to chemistry. It is not. So there are solutions to that. And if you are having that discussion with yourself, you should probably have that discussion with your present supplier of sanitation chemicals and equipment. And remember that training is a tool as well. You can't really have enough training. So if the training is available to you, it's always a positive return on investing in training. SSOPs, Standard Sanitation Operational Procedures. They are standard procedures that outline your correct way to clean and sanitize your equipment. Every piece of equipment should have a created SSOP as part of your validation process and your tool process. The SSOP should be developed in such a way that anyone could look at it and know how to follow those steps to clean that particular piece of equipment. To give you an example of what it should look like, I'll just open this up here. And hopefully it'll show up on the screen. Can everyone see that? Yes, Pam? Okay, great. So this is an SSOP that we developed for biofilm treatment. It's got lots of pictures here with regards to the PPE. It's got the chemicals involved and the concentration of how you use those chemicals, etc. Yes.
I cannot see that. Sorry.
You can't see it?
No.
Okay, then I am going to get rid of it. Can you see that? All right, are you seeing the screen, the slide for the right tools?
Yes.
Okay, so an SSOP is a document that's part of the tools in your toolbox. It's kind of not a difficult thing to write, but it has to be written in such a way that it's usable by everybody. And it actually has to be written at a grade 3 level, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do, actually, if you sit down and try and do it. But it can be done, and your sanitation supplier can help you with that. Okay, so let's talk about the validation processes that are involved for food production. A validation of your processes can take many forms. They can be visual inspections, when to do the visual inspection, corrective action reports on sanitation, when you should do your corrective action reports. PM reports or preventative maintenance reports are part of your validation process as well. Pre-op procedures, pre-operational procedures, when do they take place? There's ATP swabbing, allergen testing, bile swabbing. There's titration procedures and recording. We'll talk a little bit about that as well in a little more detail. Annual review and training and recording. And of course, what we just talked about, the SSOP, is also part of your validation process as well as your tools. So visual inspections, let's talk about those for a sec. Should take place during sanitation, and corrective action should take place then. So this would be step 5 in our 6-step process, would be the corrective action, would be the validation process on sanitation. That would be the visual inspection. Corrective action reports are required when we do that. So what happens is that a corrective action is any corrective action taken after the visual inspection. You inspect your equipment, you see a place that you missed during the cleaning process. The corrective action is to do a spot clean on that process, and that should be recorded on a chart as a corrective action. Now, a little bit of caution on corrective action reports when it comes to visual inspections. You will, when you do a visual inspection, you're not looking for the places that you may have not cleaned properly. You're looking for the places that you did not clean properly. Because it's such an intensive cleaning process, there will be areas that you will have missed. So a corrective action report that demonstrates a consistent cleaning result with no need to spot clean or corrective action requirement over months and months and months is a very suspicious document. And if an auditor sees that, and they will want to look at that, they will come back on your dime and audit your sanitation program for days, because it just doesn't happen. There's always some kind of corrective action at night. So being proactively recording that is part of your process of continuous development and improvement. PMs are just preventative maintenance reports. They're supplied by your chemical technician that comes in and does a PM. It documents the maintenance on your chemical dispensing equipment, and they can be required for third-party audits. So those pieces of paper that you receive should be filed and kept for future reference. Pre-ops, pre-operationals, they're usually completed before the start of production. It should not be used as a replacement for step 5 visual inspection on the cleaning and sanitation process, and vice versa. Ideally completed before the sanitation staff has left in case further cleaning is required. Hard to do as a scheduling issue, but ideally that would be best. And it has to reflect the reality of the situation again, right? It has to be a document that reflects of some kind of corrective action or what have you. So it's an important document to keep to reflect the realities of your workplace. ATP swabbing is a process that uses a specialized swab and a reading meter to determine the presence of ATP, anodisine triphosphate. A high score from this swabbing could indicate a requirement for cleaning or specialized cleaning. Results from an ATP swabbing are immediate. So it's a good tool in that way as a validation process for your cleaning. It is not a bacteria test. ATP does not test for bacteria. There seems to be Still some confusion in the marketplace about that. It is not a bacteria test. And when you're doing ATP, if you use ATP as part of your validation process, it has to be mapped out so that you're testing different areas of your facility and different surfaces of your facility over a period of time. So it gives you an overall complete map of your testing. Allergen testing. Some processors are using allergen testing as part of the validation process. So they're testing for food allergens. So there are various food allergens in Canada: gluten, crustacean, sulfur dioxide, corn, peanuts and nuts, fish, milk, and egg are recognized food allergens in Canada. So we have, when you're using allergen testing as a validation for your cleaning and sanitation, you're testing at a very low level of contamination. You're testing at a very low molecular level. It's used to validate the effectiveness of your cleaning and sanitation process. I do have seafood processors who are producing in excess of tens of thousands of pounds of seafood a shift. And they use allergen testing to validate their clean before the start of production the next day with passes, a consistent level of passing. What that means is that even though they are producing an allergen because they're producing seafood, a good sanitation program can have a very good repeatable result for you if you implement it and establish it correctly. So allergen testing can be used to validate your cleaning process. Bile swabbing is used as, using a swabbing to determine the presence of bacteria. That swabbing result can be structured in such a way that it can be general presence of bacteria or specific to bacteria. Essentially, that the procedure can be done, it's essential rather, that the procedure be conducted correctly. So training is important when you're doing it, so your swabbing is done correctly. And the results are usually within 24 to 48 hours. So the downside of bile swabbing is that if you have a problem, you don't know about it until a day or two later. But it is part of the validation process. Titration procedures. Now, I was asked to focus a little bit more intently on this, and I will. Titration procedures are the only way to accurately measure the concentration of your chemistry. And you have to measure and record the concentration of your chemistry as part of your GMPs. There is some confusion about using titrations as opposed to using a test strip. Here's the story. Test strips are not accurate. Test strips are only used as an indicator. So it tells you, it gives you an indication of how close you are to something. They should not be used for testing sanitizer concentration. So let me repeat that. Test strips should not be used for testing your sanitizer concentration. And let me emphasize that with some photos here. So this would be an example of a roll of testing paper that tests for quaternary ammonium sanitizer from 0 to 1,000. These are 3 containers on my kitchen counter of quaternary ammonium sanitizer mixture. You can't tell by looking at it what the concentration is because it's transparent. But if you use test strips like this, you can dip them and they'll turn a certain color, and that color will tell you that these sanitizers right now are at around 200 parts per million, which is where they should be for a quaternary ammonium sanitizer mixture. But if you use a titration kit and use these titration chemicals, you will see that even though all 3 of these with the test paper tested at 200 ppm, this one here on the extreme left was actually below by 185 ppm and it was too low a mixture. The one on the extreme right was at 225 ppm, which is too high, and the one in the middle was at 200 ppm where it needs to be. So when you're validating your chemistry, the concentration of your chemistry, you need to use a titration kit. Titration kits are provided by your sanitation supplier at a cost. The kits are developed to test the chemistry that you have on site, and the kits are adaptable to any changes in your cleaning chemistry. So if you change a product for a certain reason, your kits are very readily changed or are adaptable to meet that need. So it's, and the training for titration is provided by your chemical supplier. Part of the validation process, annual review, training, and recording. Training supplied by your sanitation chemical supplier would be cleaning and sanitation review, hand washing, personal hygiene for the food worker, titration procedures, etc. All of this training is provided by your cleaning, or should be provided by your cleaning and sanitation chemicals provider. We always issue training certificates when we do our training, and again, we spend 85 to 90% of our time just providing education and training for our customers. Excuse me. And for our customers, our policy is to provide this training at no cost to our customers. Validation process, again, the SSOP, a well-maintained standard sanitation operational procedure file is part of your validation process. Auditors will want to see them. And you can write one SSOP to cover multiple areas. Like, for instance, you would write one SSOP to cover the cleaning of a door or the cleaning of a wall. So, but again, your sanitation supplier can help you and help guide you in the development of your SSOPs. So we're going to end off our webinar with biofilms. I want to talk a little bit about biofilms, what they are, and why it's important to know about this particular situation and impact on your production facility. Biofilms are microorganisms that attach to a surface, any surface really. It's a bacteria colony that develops and traps itself into an extracellular matrix. This matrix or biofilm is a slimy mass that a colony will live in. There are multiple molecular organisms within this colony. They exchange, genetic information, and it's something that can be quite a problem for most food facilities. Oh, what happened there?
Are you able to share your screen again?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Something happened.
Yeah, that's.
Here we go. Let me just scooch down here. Apologize for that, folks. Here we are. So biofilms are a natural thing. Well, what's going on here? Here we go. Biofilms are natural in nature. They're the sliminess on rocks and rivers is a biofilm. The woody mouth in the morning in your mouth, that's a biofilm as well. But it's a natural thing. And what it is, a biofilm is made up of a polysaccharide matrix. It's a membrane that's developed around a bacteria colony. It's the ability of a bacteria colony to protect itself from the environment, and they are very difficult to remove. And the essentials for a biofilm are really simple. You need a surface, you need water, and you need food. You need nutrients, which is what a food production facility will provide. Biofilms can exist in everywhere, and they're usually in plain sight. You just don't see them. So things like on equipment, like screws and holes, rims along equipment, scratches, corners of poorly designed corners and edges, junctions of surfaces, and hard to reach areas are all areas that can support and maintain a biofilm. The problem with biofilms on equipment, it can deteriorate equipment, it can cause corrosion, it can deteriorate concrete structures like on the floors and that. So there are a lot of problems with biofilms that go unchecked. They can be visible or invisible in a food and production environment. They're very difficult to remove. They're very resistant to conventional sanitation methods, and they persist under harsh conditions. The way they usually present themselves, if you're doing a bile swabbing as part of your validation process in your facility, and every now and then you get a spike in bacteria counts, and then it diminishes off and goes away, and then 3 or 4 days later you get another spike, that's usually the indication that you have a biofilm problem. Because what happens, the biofilm and the colony will grow and grow to the point where it will become overcrowded, the film ruptures, and then the microorganisms will travel through the air, either in a live or a spore state, lay down on another surface, and start and repeat the process. And that rupturing is when you get the spike in your counts. Now, if you're experiencing that, what do you do? There are a number of products that are available that will allow you to detect and eliminate this particular problem. One is called Biodetect. Now, this is a product that we developed, and you spray it on a surface, and as soon as it becomes in contact with a biofilm, it lights up like that. So it's a very immediate visual indicator of trying to track down where you may have a biofilm. This product will not react with an organic soil load. It won't react with the protein. It only reacts with the polysaccharide matrix of a biofilm. So it's a very useful tool in your toolkit. And these are some examples of where we found biofilms in the processing area. This is a switch. You can see it turn pink here. Along here, there's some conveyor running boards right here, and underneath the conveyor where you see this color code, that's the presence of a biofilm. So really almost in direct contact with the food product. Scrubbing a biofilm, you gotta be very careful when you're trying to remove a biofilm. Scrubbing will simply spread the bacteria around. Most cleaning products, regular cleaning products will only disrupt the film and move it around. And even a dead biofilm structure that stays on equipment can be the starting point for a new biofilm. So it's something that has to be addressed and removed correctly. The other part of the process is to use a product that we have developed called Biodestroy. Now, this product is actually, it's a very inexpensive product to use. It's one product, very easy to use. It's a foaming product. We did that for a particular reason, so you can use it in drains as well. It's very thick foam product. 2% mixture is the highest that you would mix it at. It's one application. It's phosphate free, and it actually has it's the only product on the market that has a Health Canada disinfection claim. We developed this product in conjunction with the University of Montana, which is one of the leading schools of research into biofilms. So if you have any questions on any of the topics that we covered today, this is my contact information. You can take a screenshot of that, or you can get my contact information through Pam as well. And these are my references for regards to the information I presented today. And I'm opening up to questions. So shall I stop sharing my screen, Pam? Is that how this works right now?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. And it won't let me do that for some reason. Oh, here it is. If I hit the right button, it will. Here we go.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much, Lauren. That was really great. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but I had a couple of questions previously. So what is the most common or the biggest challenge or obstacle someone would face when implementing a sanitation program?
The biggest obstacle that people face in this industry is information, access to information. There's a lot of do's of implementing and developing a sanitation program, and there's a lot of don'ts. Knowing the don'ts is important. And again, that's where your sanitation provider, your provider of sanitation, cleaning and sanitation chemicals should and could be a very big support for you. That's information is the biggest hurdle.
Okay, great. Okay, so why is it important to use a chemical company like Sanimark or another chemical company? Usually there's an extra cost, and I think you touched on this, what the benefits are to going with a company like a larger company and spending a little bit more for the chemicals than.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it's like, I mean, we're all, when it comes down to it, I mean, when you're producing a product for the marketplace or whatever that product may be, you're in business. And of course, at the end of the day, we all have to have profitability. But with regards to using, not necessarily, I wouldn't use the word bigger. I would use the word competent as regards to a chemical supplier. So if you're a chemical supplier is giving you the support that you need, with regards to the education, with regards to availability of responding to your needs, or being a source of questions you may have, at least being a source, being that support, being a partner. Really, you want a chemical supplier that's a partner. The chemistry is only part of it. The chemistry is the easy part, actually.
Yeah.
The hard part is the challenging part. Not want to use the word hard. The challenging part is acquiring the information, acquiring the support, and using that information and using that support. Your chemical supplier, big or small, needs to be a partner today.
Okay. Yeah, I was really surprised when you were talking about the cost and how 6% is the chemicals. So it's, there's so much more in that little 6% than
there is, you know, and it's the value of your again, this is my world, but the value of your chemical supplier, your chemical representative, is not just the fact that you buy chemistry from them and they get it to you on time. That is the easy part. There's a whole lot that has to go with that now. And in our industry, again, I'm repeating myself, in our industry, we are educators. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Who happen to sell chemistry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Could you give us a bit of insight on the importance keeping non-food contact surfaces as well as food contact surfaces clean?
Yes. Okay. Very important. I'll give you a number of answers to that. Hand washing. Okay, when we do hand washing seminars now for our customers, we do hand washing seminars. Everybody in the building, whether they're in reception or in the office upstairs or they're on a production floor, will do that hand washing seminar. Because the way it works is this: when I do an audit on a prospective customer, I start my audit 50 yards away from the front door. And I draw a big circle around the production facility, and everything within that circle impacts that production facility in some way. And we had to be cognizant of that so we can put into place procedures that will minimize that possible negative impact. So sanitation on non-food contact surfaces like railings and doors, the janitorial side of it is absolutely crucial to controlling cross-contamination, because everything has some kind of an effect on the production floor. So it's a very global way of thinking about sanitation. It's crucial to be just as diligent on the non-food contact surfaces as well as the food contact surfaces.
Awesome. Yes. Okay, and we have another one. Who should be doing the titration testing? Sanitation or QC?
That's a good question. You have to do your titrations on a very scheduled basis. So for cleaning chemistry, I recommend that my customers do at least 2 titrations a week. Now, when you're titrating, you're not only checking for the concentration of your cleaning chemistry, you're also making sure that your dispensing equipment is working, or you haven't run out of chemistry, right? If your titration procedure result is 0, something's wrong. You're not either dispensing chemistry or you're out of it. For sanitation, for your sanitizer, you have to do a titration procedure on your sanitizer every day. You've got to have sanitizer every day. So the people who do that are your cleanup crew. So you should have people delegated and trained on your cleanup crew to do the titration. That's their responsibility. That would be my recommendation. It's no good to clean, if someone completed a complete sanitation procedure at night, and then QC comes in the morning and does titration, and they get 0 on their cleaning and 0 concentration on their sanitizer. The only result of that is a shutdown production, because the only result from that is that you didn't clean because you didn't have any chemistry. So you do your titration before the start of sanitation. It's usually the sanitation crew that would do that.
Okay, great. Okay, so if you have reagents and litmus paper And if they are expired, is it okay to use them or should they be replaced?
They should be replaced. If it has an expiry on it, it needs to be replaced because chemistry does degrade over time. The trick there is not to order too much.
Okay, good.
We can get the product to you fairly quickly. You know, it's kind of frustrating when I get a phone call at 5 o'clock at night on a Friday saying I'm out of product. Can you send me some? I can't. But
Why
you know,
not?
I can't fax it to you. I can't email it to you. But yeah, if you monitor your product, and we can get it to you fairly quickly. We have a huge warehouse. You don't need a warehouse long.
Okay. And I think we touched on this. How often do you recommend companies complete in-house titration tests on cleaners and sanitizers? So
yeah, that's a good question.
week.
It's a good question because you should never rely on your supplier's validation testing as part of your own. So for instance, if our technician comes in, if we have a schedule at a plant, if we have one of our customers that requires 3 preventative maintenance visits a year, say, large customer, they require that. So our technician will show up, they'll do a preventative maintenance on the equipment, and then they'll do a titration test procedure to make sure it's working properly. That is that's on the PM paper, but it should not be used as part of your own validation. Did I answer your question? I think. Yes? No?
I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, it's something you will keep on file, but you have to be responsible for your own validations.
Okay, good. And we have a couple more questions coming in. How about items like no rinse food contact wipes that are expired?
Yeah, you know, anything that's expired, anything that's past an expiry date, you shouldn't use it. And here's why. Now, it may be okay because some chemical molecules are far more stable than others, right? Case in point, a quaternary ammonium sanitizer has a shelf life that's quite extensive, right? Chlorine, bleach, has a shelf life of about 60 days. That's it. So it depends on what you're talking about. But regardless, if it has a shelf life that's posted on the label and you've exceeded that shelf life, you can't use it. Because if you are audited and the auditor picks up on that, you have potentially have a major recall. They could go back and say, how long have you been using that sanitizer? It's been expired. And you're non-compliant. So if it's expired, whether it's a wipe or whatever, you really shouldn't use it. So that comes more back to inventory management on the part of the customer.
Okay.
Did I?
Yeah, no, okay. So we have another one. Is it necessary to keep a separate corrective action log just for sanitation?
Yes. Yes. A corrective action log for sanitation has to be separate from the pre-op log that is usually conducted by QA, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have a couple of things there. We could either have a correction or a corrective action.
Exactly.
You know, we don't want, there's one incident in 1 month to have to, depending on the severity, of course. But I mean, if it's just one spot clean, yes, it should be marked or noted, but I think normally that would be on the pre-op. So,
yes, and Pam, here's the thing. I mean, again, you're
post-op. Sorry. Yeah.
But if you develop a program for your facility to meet the realities of your facility, what an auditor wants to know, other than the fact that the program you have in place is effective, they want to see a proactive result that you're following the program you develop. It's your program, and if it's giving you the results and recording the results that you need, then it's fine, as long as you're following it.
Yeah.
Personally, for sanitation, I would have a separate log, but I mean, that's just my suggestion. It's only a suggestion.
Yeah, even the sanitation supervisor. Or,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a complicated procedure, but it's something to consider.
Okay. We have another question. Is it necessary? Oh yeah, no, we did that. Would cleaning a minor soiled patch on equipment with Elco wipes during pre-op be sufficient?
That would very much depend on what the equipment is. If it is something like a scale or a table, probably, you know, maybe. If it's something that's quite a complicated piece of equipment that's turning and a lot of mechanical action, I would say no. I mean, it would be something that you would have to determine at the point in time. There really isn't a one-step process. You can't clean and sanitize in one step. So there are wiping wipes that we have, sanitizing wipes that you can wipe down control panels or touch pads or sometimes scales, but really you have to clean, rinse, and then sanitize. When you apply a non-rinse sanitizer to a clean surface, once you rinse that off with water, that surface is no longer sanitized. So there is a process and a chemistry involved. That is something that there isn't really an out-of-the-box answer for. It's something that you would consult with your sanitation supplier and your representative, a person like myself, to determine what the best course of action would be.
Okay, so for more details, please contact Lauren.
Sure. It's my job.
Okay, and now, there's a question for me. How long before the webinar is posted on the Perennia website? Okay, I'm not 100% sure. We are busy trying to get some other webinars posted. So I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks. So, and that hopefully that's within. So stay tuned. And maybe we could send out a just a reminder when it is posted, so you will know. Is that okay, Moira?
Sounds like a good plan.
Awesome, perfect. Okay, we have a couple more questions. What would be the correct cleaning process after swabbing during production?
So if I understand the question correctly, you're talking about doing a refresh during production halfway through production. Is that what they mean there? I'm not really sure.
What would be the correct cleaning process after swabbing during production? Yes.
Okay, so there is a procedure called a refresh where depending on what you're producing, you can, halfway through production during break or something, you can come in and do a refresh of the equipment to reduce the soil load on the equipment, so when you come back you can get into production as well. That can happen. You usually don't have the opportunity to apply sanitizer during that process because you have a very short period of time to do that. It's called that refresh process. However, be careful. A refresh process is not a substitute for cleaning and sanitation procedures. It is simply not. A lot of people got into trouble over doing that, being confused by that. So again, if that's something that you require because of production issues, that is something you should consult with your cleaning and sanitation expert to help them develop something that would suit your needs.
Good. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions or aren't any more questions, I think it's 3 o'clock on the nose. Look it up.
Good job, everybody. Perfect.
Awesome. We are timed. Okay, so with that, I think we will close the webinar, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks, it will be posted. And I hope to see you back on Tuesday for the next webinar with Dr. Berta Ball. So thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank you, Maura. Thank you, Pam. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You too. Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everybody.